Hello everyone, welcome to my channel and welcome to my first hauled books video. It's interesting, I knew I wanted to do a hauled books video of all the books that I wanted to, or the books that I've bought over the last month. And I was thinking, oh, it's gonna be like 5-10 books, nothing too crazy. I can spend a little bit of time explaining why I really liked the book and why I bought it. I can't do that for this video. I have too many. I don't even know how many exactly I bought, but it's quite a list. I'm going to get through all of them, only give you a very brief synopsis of what the book's about. But first, I'm going to give a dad joke. So, what do lawyers wear to court? Lawsuits, of course. All right, so we're gonna go through this quickly. So over the last month, I have definitely bought quite a few books. Some of them were because of this deal that I saw at Walmart where it was like $5 a book. I had to get them. So there were quite a few books from that. There were a few books that my fiance had bought using his money for his birthday, which was last month, and also just a few books that I really wanted to get over the course of the month. And there was also just some other gifts, and there was one book of the month book. Regardless, it was quite a few books than I was expecting, and I'm almost wondering if next month is going to be just as bad. I hope not, because my TBR shelf is overfilling, and I was not expecting to fill this cart. But in any case, I'm going to start off with The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I actually got this book because at Barnes & Noble, at the cafe, they always have a $5 book for, you can spend $5 on it if you buy a beverage or something. I always buy coffee there, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to pick this book up. Didn't really know what it was about, but it looked really interesting. So it says in the back, Natasha, I'm a girl who believes in science and facts, not fate. Not dreams that will never come true. I'm definitely not the kind of girl who meets a cute boy on a crowded New York City street, falls in love with him. Not when my family is 12 hours away from being deported to Jamaica. Falling in love with him won't be my story. Danielle. I've always been the good son, the good student, living up to my parents' high expectations. Never the poet or the dreamer, but something about Natasha makes me think that fate has something much more extraordinary in store for both of us. So yeah, this looks really good. It looks as though she's written quite a few other books. I'm actually really excited to get instructions for dancing, which is on the back of this book that she's written. That was one that I was going to get for this month's book of the month, but wasn't able to get it because I can only get $3 from it. But yeah, I'm really excited to read this one. Alright, so the next book that I bought is The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. I actually bought this at an antique store. We went over to a city not too far away from where we live, and they had a really nice antique store that I haven't been to in a long time. I actually found 2 books there. I'll go over the other one in a second. But if you don't know what The Time Traveler's Wife is about, it says on the back, a most untraditional love story that is a celebrated tale of Henry D. Tamble, a dashing adventuresome librarian who involuntarily travels through time, and Claire Abshire, an artist whose life takes a natural sequential course. Henry and Claire's passionate affair endures across a sea of time and captures them in an impossibly romantic trap that tests the strength of fate and basks in the bonds of love. I've heard so many good things about this book. I was really excited to see it on the shelf for $3. So I picked it up, and I'm excited to get started on this one. Alright, so the next one that I picked up from the antique store is The Girl Who Played with Fire by Stieg Larsson. It's the second book in the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series. I actually was also given the second book from my friend Cass, who gave me the first of the series that I read last month. She also gave me the second book, so I technically have 2 copies now. I had bought this before I knew she was going to let me borrow it. So, yeah, not much to talk about. It's just the second in the series. It's going to continue following Michael Blomkvist, which is a reporter for the Millennium. He was kind of involved in an affair with another business when he was publishing a story that wasn't quite true. He didn't have enough facts for, and then he ended up getting involved with Lisbeth Salander, who is a kind of not private eye, but she's a hacker that finds information, kind of a freelancer for other newspapers. And they kind of get involved with each other because of a case of a missing person that had been unsolved for over 30 years, but they finally were able to figure out what happened to her. And I believe that the second book, it kind of continues along their relationship and finding another case that is very interesting that they need each other's help to try and solve. So I'm excited to pick this book up. Probably do it next month, and yeah. All right. So the next book that I have is Ariadine. Sorry, by Jennifer Saint. It's the book of the month pick that I chose in May. I'm really excited about this. It's a retelling of Ariadine, Princess of Crete. So she grows up greeting the dawn from her beautiful dancing floor and listening to her nursemaid stories of gods and heroes. But beneath her golden palace echo the ever-present hoofbeats of her brother, the Minotaur, a monster who demands blood sacrifice. When Theseus, Prince of Athens, arrives to vanquish the beast, Ariadine sees in his green eyes not a threat but an escape. Defying the gods, betraying her family and country, and risking everything for love, Ariadine helps Theseus kill the Minotaur. But will Ariadine's decision ensure her happy ending? And what of Phaedra, the beloved younger sister she leaves behind? Hypnotic, propulsive, and utterly transporting, Jennifer Saint's Ariadine forges a new epic, one that puts the forgotten woman of Greek mythology back at the heart of the story as they strive for a better world. It was by far the best book from that selection for May. I was really excited to get it, and I'm really excited to have it. Definitely want to give this a read. Okay, the next book that I picked up was actually when I was at Barnes & Noble, and I saw in the front, I had heard that Andy Weir had come out with a new book, and I'd heard a lot of good things about it, so I just had to pick it up. It is Hail Mary, or Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So if you don't know what it's about, the back says, a lone astronaut, an impossible mission, an ally he never imagined. Ryland Grace is the sole survivor on a desperate last chance mission, and if he fails, humanity and Earth itself will perish. Except that right now, he doesn't know that. He can't even remember his own name, let alone the nature of his assignment or how to complete it. All he knows is that he's been asleep for a very, very long time, and he's just been awakened to find himself millions of miles from home, with nothing but 2 corpses for company. His crewmate's dead, his memories fuzzily returning. Ryland realizes that an impossible task now confronts him. Hurtling through space on this tiny ship, it's up to him to puzzle out an impossible scientific mystery and conquer an extinction-level threat to our species. And with the clock ticking down and the nearest human being light years away, he's got to do it all alone. Or does he? An irresistible interstellar adventure, as only Andy Weirder can imagine it. Project Hail Mary is a tale of discovery, speculation, and survival to rival The Martian, while taking us to places it never dreamed of going. I am so excited. I haven't actually read any of Andy Weir's books, but I knew about the movie The Martian. And I'm just really excited to give this book a go. I actually really wanted to pick this up when I bought it, but unfortunately it didn't quite work out that way, so I hope to to start this book soon. Alright, the next book that I'm going to talk about is Victoria Schwab's The Dark Vault. It actually it looks as though it's has some bonus short stories in it as well in this copy. As you know, I love Victoria Schwab's books. This is actually another one of her YA novels. I didn't know that she wrote. And when I saw it at Barnes & Noble, I just had to pick it up. So the back says, imagine a place where the dead rests on shelves like books. Each body has a story to tell, a life seen in pictures only librarians can read. The dead are called histories, and the vast realm in which they rest is the archive. Mackenzie Bishop's grandfather first brought her 4 years ago. Oh, restart that. Mackenzie Bishop's grandfather first brought her here 4 years ago, when she was 12 years old, frightened but determined to prove herself. Now her grandfather is dead, and Mac has grown into what he once was, a ruthless keeper, tasked with stopping often violent histories from waking up and getting out. Because of her job, she lies to the people she loves, and she knows fear for what it is, a useful tool for staying alive. Follow Mackenzie as she explores the boundary between living and dead, sleeping and waking, through these 2 timeless novels, now bound together in this thrilling collection. With stunning prose and a captivating mixture of action, romance, and horror, The Dark Vault delves into a richly imagined world where no choice is easy, and love and loss feel like two sides of the same coin. I've been loving her books so much, and this just looks like it's even better. So I'm really excited to pick this up maybe in the next month. Okay, so I just want to briefly mention this one. It's Junji Ito's newest novel, Love Sickness. I don't know much about it. It looks like it's kind of like a beauty retelling, but with like blood and gore and like kind of this. I don't know. I honestly don't like looking into Junji Ito's stories before I read them because there's just so much to the story and so much like depth to the stories that he writes that I don't want to know anything about them. I just know that it's his newest story. I kind of did a quick flip through and like the art of it just looks as amazing as it always does. So I was really excited to see this on the shelf and I had to pick it up. Alright, the next book that I picked up is In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens. This is actually a book that my fiance had picked out. He was really excited to read this, and I'm obviously interested as well. The back says, Athleen moved closer and poked Tal in the shoulder. Are they afraid? His lips curled into a smirk, teasing as his gaze drifted over Tal's frame. Of you? Tal blushed, the heat rising in his cheeks, his pulse fluttering under his skin. No, I'm not. Of the magic, then? A lump lodged in Tal's throat. Yes, he wanted to say. Yes, they're terrified of magic. Of me. You're not? Should I be? I'm just... That's not actually the synopsis, but I just really wanted to read that back because it's... Just that alone makes me really interested actually in the story. I mean, like the cover even looks like pirates and maybe magic. I'm not sure. I'm really interested in it. I think there's actually another book for this. So I'm really excited to give this a go. Okay, the next book is The Book of Dreams by Nina George. This is actually one of the books that I had picked up in that $5 bin from Walmart. I'm actually really excited about it. It looks really good. So the back says, Henry Skinner is a hardened ex-war reporter on the run from his past. On his way to see his son Sam for the first time in years, Henry steps into the road without looking and collides with oncoming traffic. He is rushed to a nearby hospital where he floats comatose between dreams, reliving the fairy tales of his childhood and the secrets that made him run away in the first place. After the accident, Sam, a 13-year-old synthesite, waits by his father's bedside every day. There he meets Eddie Tomlin, a woman forced to confront her love for Henry after all these years, and a 12-year-old Madeline Zidler, a coma patient like Henry and the sole survivor of a traffic accident that killed her family. As these four very different individuals fight for hope, for patience, for life, they are bound together inextricably, facing the ravages of loss and first love side by side. It looks really interesting. Just that synopsis alone makes me very curious. Apparently this author wrote The Little Paris Bookshop too, which I've heard a lot of good things about. I'm definitely, and The Little French Bistro. I don't know, I definitely find this book interesting and I really want to pick this up. Okay, the next book that I have is Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. I haven't actually read any of Octavia's books yet, and I'm really excited to. I've heard that this book is definitely one to pick up if you haven't read any of her books yet, because it's dystopian, like the plot is very captivating, makes you not want to put the book down. The back says, when global climate change and economic crisis lead to social chaos in the early 2020s, California becomes full of dangers, from pervasive water shortage to masses of vagabonds who will do anything to live to see another day. 15-year-old Lauren Alamina lives inside a gated community with her preacher father, family, and neighbors, sheltered from the surrounding anarchy. In a society where any vulnerability is a risk, she suffers from hypermanthy, a debilitating sensitivity to others' emotions. Precious and clear-eyed, Lauren must make her voice heard in order to protect her loved ones from the imminent disasters her small community stubbornly ignores. But what begins as a fight for survival soon leads to something much more, the birth of a new faith and a startling vision of human destiny. I actually was recommended this book by Peruse Project. I would check out, she has a vlog where she reads through the book and kind of explains her thoughts about it. I had to pick it up because of that, and I really want to read this. Okay, the next book that I have is Rainbow Rowell's Carry On. It's another book that my fiance picked out. He was really excited about it. We actually had bought Wayward Sun as well. Don't know where that is. We actually picked that one up as well. But the story is Simon Snow is the worst chosen one who's ever been chosen. That's what his roommate Baz says, and Baz might be evil and a vampire and a complete git, but he's probably right. Half the time, Simon can't even make his hand work, and the other half, he sets something on fire. His mentor is avoiding him, his girlfriend broke up with him, and there's a magic-eating monster running around wearing Simon's face. Baz would be having a field day with all this if he were here. It's their last year at the Wetford School of Magics, and Simon's infuriating nemesis didn't bother to show up. Carry On is a ghost story, a love story, and a mystery. It has just as much kissing and talking as you'd expect from a Rainbow Rowell novel, but far, far more monsters. I've never read a Rainbow Rowell novel before, and even though my fiance picked it up, it actually looks really interesting. So I want to pick this up soon. I'm stacking my books off to the side, and it's already kind of listing because of how many books I have. Alright, the next one is As Far As You'll Take Me by Phil Stamper. I have heard a lot of really good things from this author, and I had to pick up this book. It's another one that my fiance picked out, but I knew about it from a while ago, and I'm just so excited to read it. Marty arrives in London with nothing but his oboe and some savings from his summer job, but he's excited to start his new life, where he's no longer the closeted, shy kid who slips under the radar and is now free to explore his sexuality without his parents' disapproval. From the outside, Marty's life looks like a perfect fantasy. In the span of a few weeks, he's made new friends. He's getting closer with his first ever boyfriend, and he's even traveling around Europe. But Marty knows he can't keep up the facade. He hasn't spoken to his parents since he arrived. He's tearing through his meager savings. His homesickness and anxiety are getting worse and worse, and he hasn't even come close to landing the job of his dreams. Will Marty be able to find a place that feels like home? I love music. I love London. I honestly want to pick this book up already because it's Pride Month, but I have so many books that I need to read. So anyway, I want to read this. It looks so good. Definitely worth it. And it's falling. Alright, the next book I have is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. So I saw this in a book of the month, and I never picked it up, but now I finally did. I actually bought this at a local bookstore that had opened up a few years ago, but I finally was able to walk into and really appreciate. But the book says, Poppy and Alex and Poppy. They have nothing in common. She's a wild child, he wears khakis. She has insatiable wanderlust. He prefers to stay home with a book. And somehow, ever since a fateful car share home from college many years ago, they are the very best of friends. For most of the year, they live far apart. She's in New York City, and he's in their small hometown. But every summer for a decade, they have taken one glorious week of vacation together. Until 2 years ago, when they ruined everything. They haven't spoken since. Poppy has everything she would want, but she's stuck in a rut. When someone asks when she was last truly happy, she knows without a doubt that it was on that ill-fated final trip with Alex. And so she decides to convince her best friend to take one more vacation together, lay everything on the table, make it all right. Miraculously, he agrees. Now she has a week to fix everything. If only she can get around the one big truth that has always stood quietly in the middle of their seemingly perfect relationship. What could possibly go wrong? I want to pick this up so bad. I've heard so many good things, and I believe Noel Gallagher actually read this book too and had nothing but good things to talk about it. So another romance contemporary that I have on my list that I just need to read right away. Okay, I'm going to briefly just mention this next one. I actually found it. It's Wayward Sun, which is book 2 from Rainbow Rowell. I believe it just continues the series. This is actually a Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. So it has a really nice end page, really nice book binding, and let's see here. Yeah, just really pretty. Yeah, so I'm happy that we were able to get this special edition, and yeah, second book. All right, the next book I got is A Column of Fire by Ken Follett. So this book is one of the books that I got from that Walmart bin. It At first I was like, oh, this doesn't look that interesting, but then I read the synopsis and it really sounds good. So in 1558, already want to read it. The ancient stones of Kingsbridge Cathedral look down on a city torn apart by religious conflict, as power in England shifts precariously between Catholics and Protestants. Royalty and commoners clash, testing friendships, loyalty, and love. Ned Willard wants nothing more than marry Marguerite Fitzgerald. But when the lovers find themselves on opposing sides of the religious conflict dividing the country, Ned goes to work for Princess Elizabeth. When she becomes queen, all Europe turns against England. The shrewd, determined young monarch sets up the country's first secret service to give her early warning of assassination plots, rebellions, and invasion plans. Over a turbulent half-century, the love between Ned and Marjorie seems doomed as extremism sparks violence from Edinburgh to Geneva. Elizabeth clings to her throne and her principles, protected by a small, dedicated group of resourceful spies and courageous secret agents. The real enemies, then as now, are not the rival religions. The true battle pitches those who believe in tolerance and compromise against the tyrants who would impose their ideas on everyone else, no matter what the cost. So it's a period piece. It seems like maybe a little bit of romance, but also just kind of like drama with like the monarchy. And I mean, I am very captivated by this story. I almost want to pick it up right away. It was a $36 hardcover book that I bought for $5. So it just goes to show you that you never know what you'll find. Okay, the next book I picked up is Lady in the Lake by Laura Lippman. This is another book that I got from the Walmart bin that looked really interesting. So it says, in 1966, Baltimore is a city of secrets that everyone seems to know. Everyone, that is, except Maddie Schwartz. Last year, she was a happy, even pampered housewife. This year, she's bolted from her marriage of almost 20 years, determined to make good on her youthful ambitions to live a passionate, meaningful life. Maddie wants to leave her mark on a swiftly changing world. Drawing on her own secrets, she helps Baltimore police find a murdered girl, assistance that leads to a job at the city's afternoon newspaper, The Star. Working at the newspaper offers Maddie the opportunity to make her name, and she has found just the story to do it, a missing black woman whose body was discovered in the fountain of a city park lake. Cleo Sherwood was a young black woman who liked to have a good time. No one seems to know or care why she was killed except Maddie, and the dead woman herself. Maddie sets out to find the truth about Cleo's life and death, but Cleo's ghost, privy to Maddie's poking and prying, wants to be left alone. Maddie's investigation brings her into contact with people who used to be on the periphery of her life: a jewelry store clerk, a waitress, a rising star on the Baltimore Orioles, a patrol cop, a hardened female reporter, a lonely man in a movie theater. But for all her ambitions and drive, Maddie may fail to see people right in front of her. Her inability to look beyond her own needs could lead to tragedy and turmoil for all sorts of people, including the man who shares her bed, a black police officer who cares for Maddie more than she knows. I didn't know there was actually ghosts involved in this story like that. It definitely looks really interesting. I'm really glad that I picked it up. Okay, the next book that I picked up is Twisted Prey by John Sanford. Again, one of the books from the Walmart bin, and the synopsis is, Lucas Davenport has crossed paths with her before. A rich psychopath, Taryn Grant, had run successfully from the U.S. Senate, where Lucas had predicted she'd fit right in. He'd also been convinced that she was responsible for 3 murders, though he'd never been able to prove it. Once a psychopath has gotten the kind of rush though so often needs another fix, so he knew he might be seeing her again. He's right. A federal marshal now with a very wide-scope investigation, he's heard rumors that Grant has found her seat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and the contacts she's made from it to be very useful. Pinning those rumors down, however, is likely to be just as difficult as ever, and considerably more dangerous. But they have unfinished business, he and Grant. It's time to put an end to it, one way or another. So, murder mystery novel that looks really interesting. Really, really excited to pick it up. Okay, the next book I picked up is Judgment by Joseph Finder. Again, another book from the Walmart bin. I had so many of them because they were $5. So the synopsis says, it was nothing more than a one-night stand. Juliana Brody, a judge in the Superior Court of Massachusetts, is rumored to be in consideration for the federal circuit and maybe someday the highest court in the land. While at a conference in a Chicago hotel, she meets a gentle, vulnerable man and has an unforgettable night with him. Something she's never done before. They part with an explicit understanding that this must never happen again. But back home in Boston, Juliana realizes that this was no random encounter. The man from Chicago proves to have an integral role in a case she's presiding over, a sex discrimination case that's received national attention. Julia discovers that she's been entrapped, her night of infidelity captured on video. Strings are being pulled in high places. A terrifying conspiracy unfolds that will turn her life upside down. But soon it becomes clear that a personal humiliation, even the possible destruction of her career, is the least of her concerns, as her own life and the lives of her family are put in mortal jeopardy. In the end, turning the tables on her adversary will require her to be as ruthless as they are. Again, really interesting. It's not one I would normally have picked up, but because it was so cheap and honestly the description's really interesting, I'm excited to read it. I don't know how many times I could say that I'm excited to read a book. Alright, the next book that I picked up is Cemetery Road by Greg Iles. Already the cover looks really pretty, and it has those kind of like rough edges, so already just love the book by itself. So begins Cemetery Road, Greg Iles' most captivating and purposeful novel to date. Marshall McKeon is one of the most successful journalists in Washington, D.C., but as a chaotic presidential administration lifts him from print fame to television stardom, Marshall discovers that his father is terminally ill, and he must return to his childhood home, a place he vowed he would never go back to. Beanville, Mississippi is no longer the city Marshall remembers. His family's 150-year-old newspaper is failing, and Jed Talal, the love of his youth, has married into the family of Max Matheson, one of a dozen powerful patriarchs who rule the town through the exclusive Beanville Poker Club. To Marshall's surprise, the poker club has offered economic salvation to this community on the brink of extinction in the form of a billion-dollar Chinese paper mill. But on the verge of the deal's consummation, two deaths rock Beanville to its core, threatening far more than the city's economic future. Joining forces with his former lover, whose husband stands to inherit a seat in the poker club, Marshall begins digging for the truth. But he and Jet soon discover that the soil of Mississippi is a minefield, where explosive secrets can be far more destructive than injustice. By the time Marshall grasps the long-buried truth about his own history and the woman he loves, he would give almost anything not to have to face it. Wow, I mean, I read some of it when I picked it up, but that seems even more interesting than I thought it would be. So, yeah, another book. Oh. Alright, the next book that I picked up is Dragonmark by Cheryl Lynn Kenyon. It says it's a Dark Hunter novel. I've never read any of the Dark Hunter books before. I don't know if this is one that can be standalone or not. But the synopsis says, and by the way, the end pages look really pretty also. I don't know what it is about these end pages. But the synopsis is, centuries ago, Illyrin was betrayed, a dragon made human against his will, then forced to serve humanity as a dragon mount in their army, and to fight for them in barbaric wars, even while he hated everything about them. Enslaved and separated from everyone he knew and from his own dragon's brother, he was forced into exile in a fey realm where he lost the only thing he ever really loved. Now he has a chance to regain what's been lost, to have the one thing he covets most, but only if he gives up his brothers and forsakes the oaths he holds most dear. Yet what terrifies him most isn't the cost his family might incur. It's the fact that there is just enough human in his dragon's heart, that he might actually be willing to pay it and betray everything and everyone to see the entire world burn. Yeah, that sounds really... I love fantasy books. I've never heard of the series before, but if I read this one and love it, I may have to buy all the rest, and it does seem like there's quite a few. Okay, the next book that I picked up is The Crooked Staircase by Dean Koontz. I had actually seen this on the shelves, I think it was a year ago when this book came out. It looked interesting to me, but I haven't read a lot of Dean Koontz in a while, so I wasn't sure if I wanted to pick it up, but hey, it was in the Walmart bin, $5, I had to pick it up. So the synopsis says, Jane Hawk knows she may be living on borrowed time, but as long as she's breathing, she'll never cease her one-woman war against the terrifying conspiracy that threatens the freedom and free will of millions. Battling the strange epidemic of murder-suicides that claimed Jane's husband and is escalating across the country has made the rogue FBI agent a wanted fugitive, relentlessly hunted not only by the government but by the secret cable behind the plot. Deploying every resource their malign nexus of power and technology commands, Jane's enemies are determined to see her dead, or make her wish she was. Jane's ruthless pursuers can't stop her from drawing a bead on her prey, a cunning man with connections in high places, a twisted soul of unspeakable depths with an army of professional killers on call. Propelled by her righteous fury and implacable insistence on justice, Jane will make her way from Southern California to the snow-swept slopes of Lake Tahoe to confront head-on the lethal forces arrayed against her, but nothing can prepare her for the chilling truth that awaits when she descends the crooked staircase to the dark and dreadful places where her long nightmare was born. So I love Dean Koontz because it's a very realistic kind of like, plot-driven story, but then he kind of adds a little bit of like that, kind of fantastical, like dark depth of, just a very interesting plot that I've loved every book that I've read of his so far, and I really want to pick this one up. Okay, the next book that I picked up from the Walmart bin is The Oysterville Sewing Circle by Susan Wiggs. So, first off, the end pages. Beautiful. So in this one, it reads, At the break of dawn, Caroline Shelby rolls into Oysterville, Washington, a tiny hamlet at the edge of a raging Pacific. She's come home to a place she thought she'd left forever. 10 years ago, Caroline launched her career in the glamorous world of fashion, but her success imploded on a wave of scandal, forcing her to flee to the only safe place she knows. And in the back seat of Caroline's car are two children who are orphaned in a single chilling moment, 5-year-old Addie and 6-year-old Flick. She's now their legal guardian, a role she's not sure she's ready for. The Oysterville she left behind has changed. Her siblings have their own complicated lives, and her aging parents are hoping to retire. And there's Will Jensen, a decorated Navy SEAL who's returned home after being wounded overseas. Will and Caroline were forever friends as children, with the promise of something more, until he fell in love with Sierra, Caroline's best friend and the most beautiful girl in town. With her modeling job dying up, Sierra too is on the cusp of reinventing herself. Caroline returns to the sewing shop where she first found her passion, and discovers that even in an idyllic beach town, that are women living with the deepest of secrets. Thus begins the Oysterville Sewing Circle, where women can join forces to support each other through trouble they keep hidden. Yet just as Caroline and the children begin to heal from their loss, a new threat tests her courage and her heart. This time, though, Caroline is not going to run away. She's going to stand and fight for everything and everyone she loves. So this is a book that my fiance had picked up, and it actually sounds really interesting. So. Alright, we're almost done. So the next book that I picked up is The Ones We're Meant to Find by Juan He. I actually have already read this book. It was one of the first ones that I read immediately. It's a story about two sisters who live two very different lives. One of them, Casey, lives in this kind of above city that basically it's like a dystopian world where kind of the environment has started to really collapse and humanity has realized that they need to limit their emissions into the environment. So they build these floating cities where they are ranked by how much emissions they produce. And Casey's one of the few that live in the Sky City and is very much, safe. Like she loves it up there. The only thing that she's really upset about is that she lost her sister, C. C lives on this deserted island where she's the only one on there except for some robots. And she's trying to escape it to try and find her sister, who she remembers as Kay. But that's all she remembers. She forgot all her memories. And so it's a story about the two sisters trying to find each other and living very different lives because of their environments. And it's a really interesting story. I loved it so much, and I would highly recommend it. Okay, the next book that I'm going to that I picked up is 6 Weeks by Jessica L. Degermar. So this is a book that was actually written in my area. It's a local author, and I bought it at my local bookstore. It says, "There comes a time in a young woman's life when she must make a choice that will change her future permanently. Imogen Jones is a college student and a sole caretaker of her young half-sister. Her home life is less than ideal, and she dreams of taking her little sister away and leaving the pain far behind. When she discovers she's pregnant, she learns that she must choose what to do with her unborn child. Should she keep it, abort it, or put it up for adoption? The choice she makes will not only affect her, but also everyone around her. And she'll soon learn that sometimes the hardest decisions in life are required to be made in the shortest amount of time. There's only one thing for certain in Imogen's uncertain life. She only has 6 weeks to make her choice." I mean, it sounds really interesting. I'm really excited to not only read this story, but also because it is a local author. Okay, and I have another local author book that I bought from the same bookstore. It is The Ramblings of a Lonely Stranger, Poetry of G.H. Monroe. So this is like a little poetry book. It seems to have, I'm not really sure exactly what's in it. I don't really like to read the synopsis of poetry because they could be very different. But I'm just really excited to read another local author book. Okay, the next book that I picked up is The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea by Maggie Tokid Hall. So my fiance picked this one up. He's actually really excited about this one. Fell in love with it immediately when he saw it. He's actually reading it currently, so I stole it for a second. But the synopsis is, the pirate Florian, born Flora, has always done whatever it takes to survive, including sailing under false flags on the Dove as a marauder, thief, and worse. Lady Evelyn Hasegawa, a highborn imperial daughter, is on board as well, accompanied by her own casket. But Lady Evelyn's one-way voyage to an arranged marriage in the floating islands is interrupted when the captain and crew show their true colors and enslave their wealthy passengers. Both Florian and Evelyn have lived their lives by the rules and whims of others, but when they fall in love, they decide to take fate into their own hands, no matter the cost. Maggie Tokid Hall's sweeping fantasy debut, full of stolen memories, illicit mermaids' blood, double agents, and haunting mythical creatures, conjures an extraordinary cast of characters and the unforgettable story of a couple striving to stay together in the face of myriad forces, wishing to control their identities and destinies. I already have heard from my fiance that this is a very interesting book, that he really loves it so far. It kind of has like Japanese kind of mythology involved in it. I'm really excited to pick this up as well. Alright, the next book that I picked up is one that just was released. I'm so excited to get this started. It's One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. If you don't know already, it's a story about these two girls that kind of find each other on a New York subway. One of them has lived in New York for a long time, in New York City for a long time. She's kind of a shy person that doesn't like to be out and be sociable. And there's another girl that is on the subway that is actually trapped on there because she's from, I believe, the 1960s or 80s. It sounds like a sci-fi twist in that she's like a time-traveling person, but that she's stuck on the train. And they start falling in love with each other and like kind of try and figure out how to make a relationship work when they are in this situation. I don't know much else than that. I don't even want to read the back of it because I just want to read it for myself and just enjoy it as much as possible. It's from the author that wrote Red, White, and Royal Blue, which is one of my favorite books from this year, and I'm really excited to pick this up soon. Alright, the next book that I picked up is Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu. This is actually a story, this is a book that someone at Barnes & Noble recommended to us. It sounded really interesting when she explained it. So it says, isolated in a remote mansion in a central European forest, Laura longs for companionship until the carriage accident brings another young woman into her life, the secretive and sometimes erratic Carmilla. As Carmilla's actions become more puzzling and volatile, Laura develops bizarre symptoms, and as her health goes into decline, Laura and her father discover something monstrous. Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu's compelling tale of a young woman's seduction by a female vampire was a source of influence for Bram Stoker's Dracula, which it predates over a quarter century. Carmilla was originally serialized from 1871 to 1872, and went on to inspire adaptations in film, opera, and beyond, including the cult classic web series by the same name. I'm just so excited. They even have like endnotes for each of these and like some really interesting graphics. Like look at that. I don't know. I'm really excited about it. I'm gonna try to pick it up this month because it's Pride Month, and this is obviously kind of a, like maybe female with vampires involved. I don't know. I'm just really excited to pick this up. Okay, another book that I picked up is Camp by L.C. Rosen. My fiance bought this. Actually, he claims that it was for him, but really I was the one that told him about it. So the story is a 16-year-old Randy Kappelhoff loves spending the summer at Camp Outland, a camp for queer teens. It's where he met his best friends. It's where he performs in the big camp musical. And it's where he fell for Hudson Aronson Lim, who barely knows he exists. Hudson is a masculine gay boy who is attracted to other masculine gay boys, and Randy is decidedly not masc. Still, he wants Hudson to be his boyfriend, and this year is going to be different. Randy returns to camp as Dell, masked and looking for love. Even if it means giving up show tunes, nail polish, and his unicorn bed sheets, he's determined to get Hudson to fall for him. But as he and Hudson grow closer, Randy has to ask himself how much he is willing to change for love. And is it really love anyway, if Hudson doesn't know who he truly is? I heard about this from several people. I'm really excited to read it. It's Pride, so I'm hoping to read it this month, and I'll let you know what I think of it. Okay, the next book that I picked up is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. I had just recently read one of his books, What If It's Us, where he co-wrote with Albertalli. And I'm really excited to read this. All it says is, on September 5, a little after midnight, Death Cast calls Mateo Torres and Rufus Emeterio to deliver some bad news. They're going to die in less than 24 hours. Mateo and Rufus are total strangers, but for different reasons, they're both looking to make a new friend on their end day. The good news is there is an app for that. It's called Last Friend, and through it, Rufus and Mateo meet up for one final epic adventure, to live a lifetime in a single day. I've heard a lot of really good things about it. It's actually a really famous book that is well told from many people, and I'm hoping to also read this for Pride Month. Alright, and the final book that I have picked up in the month of May is Our Dark Duet by Victoria Schwab. It is the second book in the Monsters of Verity duology. I have already read this and already given my my input about it from my last wrap-up video. But basically it is the continuation of a book that honestly was very interesting. It takes place in like a dystopian world where there is monsters. There's a couple different types of monsters in a city called Verity. And there's other cities like there's other cities that exist as well. It's kind of like broken up into all these different cities. But Verity is like the main setting of it, and it's split up into North and South. North was controlled by this kind of overlord that was protecting them by having them pay for the protection. Whereas the South was just kind of like no holds barred. Everyone kind of had to survive for themselves, but there was this task force that was trying to keep the monsters under control. And it follows two people that kind of from different sides that fall in love with each other and then kind of separate. And in the second book, they reunite, and the story just kind of takes a turn for the worse in several ways. But it ended very well. I loved this duology. I highly recommend it. And if you want more of my thoughts from the series, I highly recommend checking out my wrap-up video. Okay, so that is all of the books that I bought in the month of May. Hopefully June will have a few less books, but I hope you found some of the books interesting. I hope you pick them up very soon, and I will let you know when I do pick them up myself. Please check out my vlogs and my other videos to get an input on what I thought of these books as I read them. And if you liked any of these books, if you like any of my content, please subscribe to my channel, like the video, and any support that you give me is greatly appreciated. Thank you.